Let's bring in South African Federation of Trade Unions General Secretary Zwelinzima Vavi, who joins us to expand the conversation. A very good evening to you. Thank you for your time. As concerns around possible tax increases mount, you've vowed to reject an anti-poor budget. Talk to us about your concerns. Okay, we appear to have some difficulty with establishing that line. Okay, I'm hoping that you heard my question as you are vowing to reject an anti-poor budget. What are some of the big concerns?
Well, I was saying that any talk or even actions to increase the VAT, which everybody knows is a regressive tax that will affect the poor more than it will affect the rich in society, will be seen as a declaration of war. Government will be taking us now to a point of no return, in that we will be left with only one option, but to fight back.
What would you say are...
We will reject that in totality. We will reject that in totality for the following reasons. Governments, the Treasury in particular, have been telling South Africans that we are losing between 300 and 500 billion rands every financial year to illicit cash outflows. That was many years ago. Government has done absolutely very little to arrest those cash outflows and mispricing. The latest reports from the United Nations indicated that we are losing, as the African continent, a staggering 1.6 trillion rands every year to financial outflows. The country that gets most affected by those outflows and mispricing is South Africa, and the sector in the main is the mining industry. Government cannot not do anything about that, which can solve all of its problems just like that at a go, and then target the vulnerable and the people who are already suffering from the thumb of neoliberalism and previous budget cuts. That's the first point.
Yeah.
The second point is that government appointed a tax commission under the leadership of Judge Dennis Davis that discovered that the corporates were involved in tax dodging schemes amounting to a minimum of 50 billion rands every year. Government have done nothing about that. And thirdly, very importantly, government has been reducing corporate taxes. Corporate taxes were at 52% at the highest point in 1992. They are now 27%. So we say the government must tax the rich and not the poor. And lastly, government knows that the rich individuals in South Africa are hoarding 1.4 trillion rands. Government must tax that money. It must introduce wealth tax, a solidarity tax, so that the people who can afford to pay more taxes can pay more taxes, not the poor, who are seeing more budget cuts of their resources in the water, electricity, public health care, education, policing, home affairs, and other social services. We will think that any thought of increasing VAT in particular will be really such an insult to the poor of our country.
What would you say are some of the dire consequences for the budget cuts? For one, if you have to look at the public sector job crisis, I mean, look at what's happening in the healthcare sector, for instance, as a prime example of the ripple effect.
Already we have 70,000 vacancies in the public service, 40,000 in the public health care alone. Already we have only 37% of the positions that should be there in the home affairs field. And as a result, the government are now talking about porous borders. that they have no capacity to manage, making everyone who wish to come to South Africa come in freely and willy-nilly, knowing that there will be nothing inhibiting them to come in. And hence, we have problems of so many foreign workers who are undocumented in the mining sector, in the security, in the restaurants, in the retail sector. And that's precisely because government have no capacity to manage the borders of South Africa. Already, we are going to see 2,000 workers in the education sector losing their jobs in the Western Cape, 4,000 in the KwaZulu-Natal. And we know now, in order to avoid job losses, Gauteng, Eastern Cape, Mpumalanga, and other provinces are resorting to cutting the transport budget that allows kids to be subsidized by the state, cutting the budget for food subsidies at schools. Now, how can anybody claim to be driving a developmental state when we know that we are moving further and further away from the international norms and standards in terms of maintaining acceptable ratios of the number of police that we should have in comparison to the citizens, doctors, nurses, teachers, police, the army itself. We have seen how it has been humbled in the DRC because it is so well equipped because of budget cuts. So we will be marching tomorrow. We're calling on everybody in the Western Cape, Cape Town in particular, to join a broad coalition of people's organization opposed to these budget cuts. Please just join and march together.
Very lastly, before we let you go, as you call upon those to join you in the march, what are the expectations that you have as we head to the budget, as you look at the various factors and the call to action that you're expecting?
This morning, or the afternoon, my apologies, we were meeting as this broad front of working class formation with the 100,000 signatures that have been signed by ordinary people all over the country. And we know that 100,000 represent millions of South Africans who are rejecting budget cuts, who are rejecting austerity, and who demand a new economy that will ensure that black people, the working class, are included in this economy instead of remaining in the margins of a white-only economy we inherited from colonial and apartheid era. Tomorrow, we expect that the minister will continue where he left us, because already he have read to the country the medium-term budget policy framework statement that says that they are continuing with these inappropriate fiscal and monetary policies. They will tell us that they want to reach the lowest ratio of the deficit to the GDP. They will tell us that they're chasing an irresponsible surplus in the budget when they are forcing the departments to cut their essential services provided to the poor in the country. And they will tell us that they want to cut more corporate taxes whilst they are looking at the poor to basically solve the crisis of capitalism at their own backs. So we expect an anti-poor program to be announced tomorrow, and that's why we are mobilizing and we're calling on everybody who genuinely loves equality, genuinely wants to see South Africa developing towards a more equal society, to join the marches and demonstrations tomorrow to say enough is enough with budget cuts. We want a people's budget.